Alright guys, so I just want to go over what we do from strength and conditioning. I call it physical preparation, just a more complete term to say what we do outside of football in terms of training. You're going to probably hear me use that term a lot more, so especially with you guys being freshmen, it's probably just a better idea for you to get used to. Okay, so a little introduction. Heard Coach Shep say before what he wants out of an athlete here, this is regardless of position, is to be as fast as possible without losing your physicality. So if you're, we could take an Olympic sprinter, come here, put him as a football player, even though they would have that much speed, they most likely not have that physical, like the tenacity that it takes to be a football player. Obviously you need to be aggressive. Okay, with the exception of probably a quarterback, kicker, punter, you need to be aggressive in the football position, right? So, our tactics. So, tactics meaning what we do from a football, like play calling standpoint. Our offense is always multi-formation. Do a lot of it's very pro style. As you guys will understand, you're probably, as everybody's been saying, swimming in it. A lot of formations, a lot of different plays, a lot of variations. It's very tailored to the player also. Okay, if there's like a player that stands out in any position, so using Moses as an example, in the past we didn't use the tight end in the pass game so much. Now with Moses, because he has special skill set, he's being involved in it. On defense, our base is a 4-3. Big time heavy blitz, okay? Coach Meeting loves to bring pressure. If you're a linebacker, you should love playing for Coach Meeting. Same with the defensive lineman. A lot of stunts, okay? It's very fun, very up-tempo style. Okay, so in your manual that you got, I think that most people, raise your hands if you got a manual for over the summer. Okay. Most of you. All right, good. Okay, so again, hopefully you read it. I don't know if you did or not. It's not my problem now, okay? So basically this is just going to be an outline and me talking to you a little bit about everything. So the first thing that was mentioned was bioenergetics. So that just means energy system, how your body is fueled in terms of physical activity. Again, there's 3 systems, alactic, lactic, and aerobic. Okay, football is predominantly an alactic aerobic capacity sport. Reason, okay, short play. Most plays on average last 3 to 8 seconds. Everybody agree with that? Is that okay? That's about how long it will be. Okay. Very short recovery. Play clock in college is 40 seconds. So at the most, with ball spotting, going back to the huddle, going in and out. Okay. The most you're going to get in between a play is about 45 seconds. Okay. Once you get in between timeouts, quarter changes, halves, you can get anywhere from a half's going to be about 20 minutes. Depending on when they start the clock. In between a timeout can be about a minute. Quarter changes are about a minute to 2 minutes on average. Okay, those 2 things right off the bat. Anybody that has any physiology knowledge knows that the aerobic system is going to come into a huge play. That's why we did that test yesterday. Okay, that's why we ran short little sprints, but for very long, it took about 20 to 25 minutes to complete all that while we had the rest periods. If you think about how that test was administered to you, it was very similar to what would be about a half of football. You usually get about 3 to 7 series and a half. I mean, it's very, there's a lot of dynamics that come into play with it. If there's turnovers, how long a series takes in terms of plays. You can have series that last all the way up to 14 plays. I think that's probably about the longest I've ever seen, maybe more. And then sometimes it can be 1 play, boom, someone gets picked, and it flip-flops, okay? Okay, so like I said, most often, each side, like you will be playing about 50 plays. There's usually about 100 plays per game, okay? And then 2 to 3 hours of time, that's a very long time. That's why we practice for that amount of time, just so that you're fit enough to sustain, in a high performance level over that entire duration. Okay, so another big fancy word, biodynamics. All that means is movement considerations. How do you guys move? Okay, what's most important? Okay, where does all the movement come from? Okay, so there's 3 subcategories. Kinetics, all that means is like force, velocity, acceleration, very simple things. That's just what we want to do, is to try and put you in similar constraints in the physical training part that's outside of the field that what you encounter on the field. Okay, kinematics is just the joint angle. So, okay, if you think about the football position, most of the time for a linebacker safety, it's always going to be in about a quarter squat position. Lineman, obviously, your chest is going to be flat. Your trunk, will be flat to the ground just because you'll have your hand on the ground. Same with the defensive lineman. Quarterbacks are different, punters are different, kickers are different. There's just a lot of different, variability and dynamics that come into each one of those positions. So thus, you're going to see some positions doing different exercises than others. Okay, and don't think of this just in weight room in terms of bench, squat, a row, or RDL. Okay, we do different exercises during the off season that are much more specific to you as an individual football player, whatever position you're playing. Okay, and the last one, biomechanics, and that's just applying mechanic principles from mechanics into the human body. Okay, that can come from just thinking about like length of a joint, length of a bone, the way that the joint hinges and everything like that. And then the last thing I put up there, you can see it up here, probably can't see it that well, is so these 5 criteria are what I use when I select exercises. I'll just buzz through these real quick. Groups of muscles predominantly involved in work, you can hit that with almost anything. Okay, football is literally a total body. It encompasses everything in order to play sport. So from head to toe, your body is involved. That one's almost always going to be on there. Okay, amplitude, there's range of motion. That just means, okay, when you say you're going to shed a block, this is all the further motion that you're going to get, right? You're not going to, if you go down here, you get knocked over, correct? So, if you fall like that low, you're just going to get toppled over. So thus, when we do these exercises, we want to be in that range of motion within each joint that is specific to how we play on the field. Magnitude of effort is just pretty much how much force you apply. So if you want to put on percentages, it's anywhere from 0 to 100%, depending on how, so linemen have a much higher magnitude of effort than what a wide receiver does, just because they're engaged with much larger football players, 250, 300 pounds, with wide receivers working with 180, 200 pounds, much smaller. Yeah. And then the time of its development is just like the time constraints that a play would be, so 3 to 8 seconds. How long does it take you to develop that force? Or you travel in 1-2 seconds before you get engaged with the opponent. So like a running back takes the ball, they have a little time before they're going to have to react or move away from an opponent. So that's another thing that you have to take into account. Then accentuated part, that just means the most important. So with sprinting, the hip flexor only works when it is behind the body. Okay, so when the thigh is extended, this is when the hip flexor is actively involved. Now we do a couple exercises to address that, where you'll take a band, wrap it around your ankle, and you'll drive through. So that's just a way. So the development of the hip flexor is the most important part of sprinting. Okay, and then the muscle work regime. All that means is if you're yielding. Okay, so yielding is static. Yielding is like in a anybody probably knows what eccentric. So when you're lowering a weight, this is yielding. Okay, your quadriceps will be yielding. Okay, static regime is when you're held. Football is very static in nature, or at least quasi or semi-static. And then overcoming is if you were going to shed that block after you go, when you come out. Okay, shortening the muscles. Right. Okay, so theory and methodology. Okay, just a couple of big fancy words to say how do we program and how do we choose workouts, exercises, means, and methods for you guys to do. Okay, so the governing principle amongst all criteria is stress, okay? I know when people think stress, they think work, school, breaking up with a girlfriend, anything that's a pet peeve, things like that. But by nature, training is stress. Now, it can be perceived as distress, which is bad, or eustress, which is good. Most training that I want to apply to you guys is eustress by nature, okay? As you can see with this little bullet at the bottom, low magnitude stressors, which is a workout or a training session, will lead to improvement in adaptation. Now, I've seen studies with world-class athletes where they track small, they do low magnitude. So, if you want me to put a percentage on, 60 to 80% of their maximum capacity, whatever that is. So that means if they can run and it's going to absolutely kill them, say 1,000 yards, they'll do 600 to 800 yards with them multiple times over a period, give them a period of rest, and then their peak. So now they go from 1,000, they go to 1,200, okay, 1,200. Okay, that is what the goal of physical preparation is. My goal is not to kill you in every workout. My goal is to build. Okay, layering a base and building up to a pyramid. Okay, very simple, right? That's why we don't train in absolutes. Not every day is going to be there for you to not be able to walk out of the weight room. And a lot of the vets will tell you that some days they're going to feel actually better after their training session than they did before. Okay, you might come in a little stiff, a little sore from the previous day. The following day, you're probably going to feel a little bit better. Okay. So, a little research I did and went to a conference, got some information. Okay, so there are similar adaptations between high and elite level athletes regardless of sporting discipline. Okay, Soviet Union, big time sports science, information based. They were crazy back when they were called communists because they could do it all state run. So that means the president, or like the president and all the government officials governed what you did as a sport. Okay, it wasn't like your local high school, it wasn't the university. Everybody had a very similar system. So what they did is when these athletes died, so they cut them open in cadaver, and they did a ton of different tests on them. Okay, what they found out is, again, regardless of sport discipline, so we're talking swimming, track, basketball, long distance, track type stuff, sprint track type stuff, throws, whatever, okay? All of these adaptations were similar amongst them, okay? Increased size of adrenal and endocrine glands, that just means, okay, so adrenaline, everybody thinks like your adrenaline's going, so that means you have a higher concentration of those hormones, and also from endocrine glands, they secrete a substantial amount of hormones also, okay? High presence of steroid hormones means that they had an increase in protein synthesis, which enables them to A, recover faster, and B, build more muscle. Okay, that's a huge goal of almost everybody. All right. Hypertrophy of immune cells, that means they're less susceptible to illness. Okay, that's obviously a huge thing. Now, when you're actually in training, you're going to be more susceptible to illness to an extent just because you're adding extra stress into your cup. Okay. Say, everybody always uses the cup analogy where you can only fill a cup so high. That's kind of like what you are at in terms of training and football practices, school, whatever it is. You can only get so much in before it overflows. Okay. Increased oxidative capacity of fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. So there's two different muscle fibers in your body. Fast twitch are good for short little bursts. They fatigue very fast. Slow twitch, good for real long durations. They don't fatigue very fast, okay? Sport-specific cardiac hypertrophy, which is usually an increased size in the left ventricle of the heart. Skeletal myocardium and diaphragm hypertrophy, so that just means, on average, any type of skeletal musculature, so arms, legs. That was increased myocardium, is the muscle surrounding the heart, and the diaphragm is what keeps you tight, or like when everybody take a breath in, okay, you feel that tighten up, that's what your diaphragm is, okay? Doing hypoxia training will increase the size of your diaphragm. That helps you stabilize the spine, and obviously going to help you reduce the likelihood of injury, okay, which is huge. And then parasympathetic dominance, you have two different nervous systems, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Okay, sympathetic is your high, upbeat. You ever seen anybody that's real jittery, moving around? It's like they got ADD. They're very sympathetic dominant. Somebody's kind of low key, smooth. Okay, very even flowing, easy going. They're parasympathetic dominant. Okay, what they found was these athletes were very good at switching from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance. They could literally turn it on, get all the adrenaline flowing, all those hormones flowing through their body, blood flowing, and during competition, as soon as they were done, smooth sailing. Okay, they had a very low heart rate, low blood pressure, heart rate, pulse were the same thing. They could recover very quick. So that's a huge, huge goal of mine, to turn you into parasympathetic dominance. Okay. So, like I just alluded to, about building up that base up to a peak of the period. Okay. So, sport form, all it is ability to perform a specific sport. In this instance, it is football. Okay. So, physical preparation, which is what I address. Okay. That is the base of it. So, you have general, specialized preparatory, specialized developmental. Those are three classifications of exercise. I'm not going to get into that. I'll say that for another day. So all that is the various workouts that we do. Take a step up, sport practice. What we're going to do tomorrow evening, first time we do an actual practice structured with the coaches and everything. Okay, or even what you're going to get once we get over to doing our rotations, doing the walkthrough. That's the technical, tactical part. That's when you learn the dynamics and the intricacies of your position, and then obviously our philosophy and tactics with our team. So, linebackers, you're going to be learning how to get reads, how to call strengths, how to do pass drops for quarterbacks, the passing progressions, run game, everything like that. Okay? And then obviously the very peak of it is integrated film study, knowing your opponent. Okay? Knowing their tendencies, knowing what they do, knowing their strengths, and knowing their weaknesses. Okay, so this is just another chart showing how we blend it all together and achieve that development of sports form.